Just kidding. Take 1.3. Hey guys, what's up? I hope everyone's been doing well. I know it's been a while since I posted a video. Just a quick update on my life is I'm currently back in the United States working remotely, but I'm still going to try to make videos to help you if you're considering moving to Vietnam or traveling to Vietnam. So in my past video, I had a lot of questions about the actual steps you'll need to living in Vietnam. If this is something that you're considering, I think it's going to be a great idea because personally I feel like it made me a better person, that chapter in my life. So if you're considering it, this is really exciting for you and I'm happy for you, but I want to help you by telling you some things that I didn't learn until I was actually living in Vietnam. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to cover is going to be passports and visas, and then I'm going to cover documentation. Then the third is going to be money. The fourth is going to be accommodation. The fifth is going to be work. And then the sixth is going to be insurance. So first, passport. I can't stress enough that you should come to Vietnam with a passport that has a lot of pages left and also isn't going to expire in the next year. The reason is because for you to get a new passport while you're abroad, especially somewhere like Vietnam where the mailing system sometimes can be unreliable, is just do yourself a favor and make sure your passport is ready to go. Second is visas. There's 3 types of visas that you can get. So first, I was able to get the 6-month visa. Okay, so that's the first one. There's a 3-month visa and then the business visa. Okay, the 6-month visa is something that you can get with an agency back in America or back from whichever country you're from. Visit an agency and see if they can help you. I was able to get a 6-month visa, which means I could stay in the country for 6 months, and then I have to do a visa run, which means I leave the country and come back after 6 months, which really isn't that bad. Then there's a 3-month visa. So the 3-month visa is what you can get on arrival. Okay, so you don't have to worry about getting a visa ahead of time. You just got to pay for it at the airport when you land. And the business visa. The business visa you can get after the 3-month visa by finding an employer and then paying a little bit extra for a business visa. So regardless, to get the business visa, you'll definitely need to get the 3-month visa if this is your first time going to Vietnam. And also visa runs. It sounds maybe kind of exciting, but if you have to do it every 3 months, it's actually a huge hassle. So what a lot of expats do is they go to the closest, most convenient place to do a visa run to get a new stamp to enter Vietnam, and that would be Cambodia. And that's about a few hours away, depending on where you're from in Vietnam. You can just take a bus or you can fly. But something you should really consider that is going to also be a hassle for you is the Cambodian visas like that they'll give you will take up a full page in your passport, which leads me back to my first point. You don't want to run out of pages, especially if you kind of like tell yourself, I'm just going to do a 3-month visa, and then you keep doing it and doing it. Next thing you know, only have a few pages left in your passport, which becomes a challenge for you if you want to travel again, because depending on the passport you have, if you only have 1 or 2 pages left, they're not going to let you take another visa. You most likely have to get a new passport, and you don't want to put yourself in that position. So I'm going to show you what the visa looks like, okay? So this is my passport, and this is how big the Cambodia visa will take up when you're going in and out of Cambodia. So it takes up a full page, and there's no way around it. So if you're trying to save money and Cambodia is the most convenient place, you have to factor in the fact that it's going to take up a full page of your passport. And it might seem like something you want to put off, but I highly wouldn't recommend it. Now we're going to talk about documentation. Definitely bring, if you have your diploma, bring it with you, bring the original copy, because I didn't think I needed it. And I was also a little bit hesitant to travel with my diploma, but when I got there and I got a job, I needed my actual diploma, and my mom had to mail it to me, which costs about $100. So just bring it with you and bring it in something that's safe. Also, if you can, get a criminal check from your home country, okay? Because if you get a job in Vietnam, they're gonna ask you to get a police check. It can be a hassle, especially if you haven't lived in Vietnam for about 3 to 6 months. There's not much to check on you. So if you want to land there and get a job immediately, get a police or criminal background check back at home. So when you go to Vietnam and you get a job, you could just give them what you have from your home country, and it saves you that step. Because going to these places to get all your documentation done, it's just it's really difficult because not everyone's going to speak English with you, and it's going to be really stressful for you. So if you can, before you come, bring your bachelor or diploma and get a criminal check from your home country if you can. Lastly, get any health documents that you'll need that's quite recent to save you getting a health check, because most likely when you get a job, they will ask you to get a health check. And by health check, I mean you're like, get your eyes checked, your teeth checked, your blood done, all that stuff, and have those documents ready so that you could just give it to your future employer. So also, if you're not sure about exactly what the health check requires, I will look that up ahead of time. My third point is going to be money. So this is going to be very simple, and it might sound crazy, but definitely, regardless where you're coming from, even if it's not for America, get US dollars. It's easier to get US dollars wherever you're from than come to Vietnam and try to get it, because of the exchange rate. And also not just bring like $20 or $30, but actually get $100 bills, but the new $100 bills, not the older version where it's just mostly green. The new one that has a little bit of gold on it, get that one. Because when you exchange that money, you get more out of your money with the new $100 bills than the old $100 bills. There are some places that won't even let you exchange the old $100 bill, which I know is crazy because money's money, but that's just something I didn't know as well before, and I think that's going to be really helpful for you. You could always exchange it to the Vietnam dong whenever you need, but most likely when you do your visa runs to Cambodia, you will need US dollars. Also, that leads into your bank account. So when I had left America to go to Vietnam, I put someone in charge of my bank account that I trust, my mom. So if anything happens and you need like a transfer or something, they can have the right to your account and just help you if you need. But just so you know, you will definitely need to open a new bank account if you're living in Vietnam. But that's okay because there's so many different options. Fourth, I'm going to talk about accommodation. Okay, so there's so many different options. If you're considering living in Vietnam, I wouldn't rush into finding an apartment right away so that when you land, you go straight to an apartment. I wouldn't and then sign a lease, because that's actually really risky. What I would recommend you do is you find either an Airbnb, a guest house, or a hotel that's safe and that doesn't have, reviews that someone got their stuff stolen, and just stay there for a week. In that time, you can kind of get a feel, you could talk to people, and a lot of times people are looking for roommates. So then it actually saves you money and saves you time. So I would find a temporary place to stay first, and then join a Facebook group online. Facebook is huge in Vietnam, and you can find anything off of Facebook. There's many different groups like expats in Saigon, fexpats if you're a female. You could join there, and a lot of times they'll post places for you to stay. So then once you get it to Vietnam, you can buy yourself some time and actually find a proper place. Actually check it out before you sign a lease that's like 6 months to a year. But just know that if you're looking for apartments on the expat pages, just make sure the prices are reasonable. I was able to get a 2-bedroom for $650. Even though that's a little bit further from the city, it still shows that, okay, like you might get a roommate and you get more out of your money and you get more space. So definitely do your research before signing any lease. The fifth point I'm going to talk about is going to be work. So if you're planning to come to Vietnam to teach English, there's so many job opportunities out there for you, but you have to make sure that you have some kind of teaching certification. So even if it's an online TOEFL or you did like a SATA program, perfect, that's great. In Vietnam particularly, they don't really discriminate against what type of teaching certificate you have, just because so many places are looking for teachers. Okay, maybe if you move to a different country, they prefer a SATA. But in Vietnam, if you have a TOEFL, a TESOL, or a SATA, it's all pretty much the same there. So just get one of those, because your employer will definitely require that. And if you have the actual certification, make sure you bring that with your documentations as well. And then to find a job, I think I would recommend starting off with a language center. There's so many different language centers in Vietnam that are super popular, like YOLA, ILA, Apollo. So do your research on all of those, and there's so many other ones that if you go online, just type in language centers Vietnam, and then most likely these places are all over Vietnam. So you could, whether you're living in Da Nang or Hanoi or Nha Trang, there's probably going to be a center there. But I would highly recommend just looking at reviews or talking to people on like expat groups, what they think about their employer. Honestly, they're all pretty much the same, and the pay is pretty much like varies, but it's all pretty much in the same ballpark. For an hour, you can make about 400,000 to 500,000 dong. So convert that into your currency wherever you're coming from. I would highly recommend starting off with a part-time contract, not full-time. The reason is, when I was a part-time, I had the exact amount of hours as a full-time teacher, because like teaching and hours are always in demand, especially like expats who are teaching. They often will just call out of work, and then you could just fill in for them for their classes. So definitely start with a part-time contract, not a full-time contract, because full-time contract, you're bound to your contract more. It has less flexibility, and you're limited by a bank of hours. So you could only work X amount of hours a month. And if you go over that, I'm not sure how you'd be compensated for that. Whereas part-time, it's just really just whatever you work is what you get paid. You don't really have to worry about a bank of hours, and it's more flexible to break your contract if you're not happy with your job. A lot of people who I met started full-time and they weren't really happy with that. And the only benefit of being full-time is that it says it'll give you health insurance, but I'll actually talk about that in my next point, because that's not really a huge benefit in Vietnam. But that leads me to my last point, which is health insurance. So when I moved to Vietnam, I actually really didn't need my health insurance back in America, because it's not likely that my company, that your insurance back at home is going to cover for something in Vietnam. And also, I wasn't really appealed to employers using that as a benefit, because I knew that everything was going to be so cheap anyways. So even if I were to go to the doctors for something in Vietnam, it wouldn't cost me that much. So trying to sell the insurance as a benefit, I wasn't really appealed to that at all. If you go to the doctors, they often won't really ask you for your health insurance, like as long as you're just gonna pay them anyways. They're not gonna give you like a difficult time, or they're not gonna not give you service because you don't have health insurance. I also really wasn't stressing health insurance in Vietnam, because everything you need in terms of medication, you could buy over the counter, which is crazy. Like, you don't need to worry about getting a prescription to go to the store to buy like whatever medication you need. So hopefully that answers most of my questions. Just to sum up, I spoke about visas and passports. Be well prepared with that. Documentations, bring the original. Money, bring US dollars wherever you're coming from, particularly the new $100 bills. Accommodation, as in find a temporary place first online before jumping into a contract. Do your research. Fifth is, you won't have a problem finding a job if you're, especially a teaching job, if you have some kind of certification and you speak English. And last is healthcare and insurance. I wouldn't stress too much about that, because it's kind of just an easygoing process when it comes to that in Vietnam. Hopefully I was able to help answer some of your questions. I know you might have some more questions, but if you do, just post in my comments and I will definitely try to answer them. And subscribe to my channel for the next video. I hope to see you guys again soon. And if you're moving to Vietnam, congratulations. I support your decision and it's gonna be great.